Hello everybody, it's Grace. Welcome to Eating Peace this week. I'm back in my kitchen. Sometimes I'm sitting right over there. Do you see that chair behind me? And that's where I do my Eating Peace videos and other videos and Facebook Lives. Today, I'm back in my kitchen. Just felt right. Because the idea that I wanted to share about today is that moment that we feel so sick and tired of what we're doing with food and eating. We look in the mirror and we feel absolutely disgusted, or we try on our favorite pair of pants and they don't even button up. Or something happens that just feels like the most incredibly despairing discouragement, a self-disgust even, seeing the reflection, the view. What do we usually do? There are 5,000 books and methods and diets and plans and scientifically proven ways of eating that we can follow. Some of them are very clear and very specific, and they have really solid boundaries, and we just do not do this, and we do this over here, and just follow it. I don't care what you feel. I don't care if you have a big emotional turmoil going on inside. I don't care if you like that kind of food. Boot camp, we're going to crack down. We're going to apply military control, like bringing the arms race out, let's fire up the weapons and get this party started and get that other party ended. It's like an incredibly forceful, intense kind of controlling perspective. I used to have it all the time around the suffering that I'm experiencing when it comes to food or eating. And the decision, an idea, awareness that comes in, it says, there is something wrong with me. There is something wrong with my appetite, with what I want, with my lack of paying attention to hunger. And I already know that these foods are bad for me and I eat them anyway. What the hell is wrong with me? And maybe cussing involved, and anger, fury even. And then, we get on the bandwagon, we get on it, we're underway, it begins to work. Of course it begins to work. You can even map out with a calendar, I'm going to lose this much weight because look what's happening here. I'm losing this, so by this particular date, I will be such and such a weight, and I have this totally under control, right? And that can work. You can crack yourself down like a crack down. We're doing this here. Everything's under control, and you can have that happen. Now, what is going on internally that ever caused the root of the problem to arise in the first place is never seen. And I tell you what, when I had that approach, and I had it over and over again, the cycle coming back, because at some point, the internal emotional life is going to rise and push up and burst through just like a volcano, especially if you have other things that you feel angry and confused, betrayal, fear, boredom, a lack of satisfaction, conversations and relationships that have happened with you in your life that you feel like there's a no-win or a lost situation or incredibly unresolved emotional life around something, that is going to come back because it's sort of stored in you. There's files that go backwards in time. I know this because it was my experience. It felt like I had actually an incredible willpower. At one point, for 2 years straight, I was on the most rigid, controlled kind of food plan with not taking one single bite of anything that was on the do not eat list, and being absolutely perfect, rigidly perfect about the this is okay list, and maintaining a really perfect weight. And I was absolutely miserable. I felt lonelier than ever. I felt even more sense of turmoil, and almost like it was closer to the surface because I didn't have my usual Band-Aid, which was eating, to put on top of it. I had this other different Band-Aid that was called following the food plan rigorously. Neither one offered the peace that I was actually seeking. So what to do? Let's get off that cycle. Let's get off that merry-go-round, roller coaster. You might have seen by now, after several rounds of it, trying the different things over time, enrolling yourself in different programs or weight loss schemes, or just even going to the gym, and nothing in a way wrong with any of those inherently by themselves, because they are, when they're just mild and light, like if you've ever met somebody that doesn't have stormy eating or emotional eating for deep reasons within, they might learn, like I remember speaking to somebody once many, many years ago who went to Weight Watchers and said, "Oh, I've never eaten a vegetable in my life." She wasn't raised with anyone cooking any vegetables, ever. She never ate anything green. She was like 25 years old, she said, when she had discovered Weight Watchers. And that's all she needed. It was like, fascinating. Most of us aren't like that for the rest of her life. No problem. It was like she just learned something new. Most of us do not have that experience. Most of us are like practically a PhD in nutrition. We've read so much about food and molecules and what happens and what's caused. Does that knowledge help you not feel compulsive about food? It did not help me. It didn't help me. There's some interesting things and it's good information, but it didn't help stop the cycle. So here's what stops the cycle. And it almost sounds to that controlling, intense, strong, laser sharp, targeted mind that wants to pull back the arrow, and fight and be very powerful. Like sort of the controller, I'm the one in charge and I'm doing it. To that one, this seems like almost a ridiculous solution. That's not going to work. Like the arms race, if you had people going to war, waving the little white flag, well, that's not going to work. They're going to lose. But it's the only thing that I found actually brought a true sense of empowerment. And that is to let the emotional cravings, the thoughts about food, the urges to food be there. Actually, let them be there. We're not fighting them anymore. They're there already anyway, you might have noticed. And trust that they are there for an important reason. As Janine Roth says, an exquisitely good reason. They are there because they have a message. They are there because there's something deeply, profoundly important that they have to share. And we aren't willing to miss that message if we really want like a deep sense of understanding about what this process is. If we really want to make friends with this, and have the cycle, the merry-go-round, nutty cycle of it all be over. It's like getting a hint of incredibly unconditional love or something very beautiful and just not being able to forget it. Like a incredibly beautiful flower smell. I'm going to want that. Curiosity. So we're not going to fight it. We're going to let it be there. One thing that's wonderful to notice is you do not have to do everything your mind tells you to do. If it's screaming at you to go buy that kind of a food that you really want to eat, we don't do it. And we already don't do everything our minds tell us to do. We don't believe everything we think. Thank goodness. Nice to notice. So to be curious about the process, as if we are approaching a terrified child, a very frightened little animal that doesn't know anything better, the little pill bug that rolls into a ball because it doesn't know how else to make it work. It's feeling pummeled and scared. The urge to avoid, it's like a survival mode, and we all have it. It must be inherently built into us in our brains, for life. So to be curious, incredibly, incredibly interested and curious about what is going on, and slow it way down. I love the work of Byron Katie. as a self-inquiry method. There's 4 questions and then finding turnarounds. So it actually kind of gives you a little prescription for running through the process of being with your experience and inquiring, wondering about it, not being so sure you've got all the answers or that control and force need to be applied to the situation. All I know is every time I applied control and force to my problems, even beyond food and eating, they came back and bit me in the butt, as they say. They came back. They were unfinished. They had a noise to make. They had a message for me that some part of me didn't want to miss. And so they were going to come back. Sometimes even applying control and force can make it worse because you are shoving something even farther into the ground that you feel really terrified to look at and you don't want to see. It is uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable to sit with a craving. But how amazing to ask yourself, what is going on in this moment? What is going on in this moment? You could even do it with something like, I need to do something. I need to go watch TV. I need to go do something. I need to do something. I need to get something done. I need to work. I've had thoughts like that. The other day, I had a thought similar to that. I only have limited amount of time and I need to get XYZ done. And I felt the surge of the impulse of kind of fear, a jolt. Get going, move, like I've been shocked by something, literally. And I just took a deep breath. I stayed seated in my chair. I looked up out my window through all the window slats that were just open so you could still see out and gaze into the street. And I just had this sudden memory. It was an openness to curiosity about what that thing is that wants to take out a whip and, snap it. What's happening here in that moment? And I suddenly remembered my father gazing out windows, like just looking out and looking out at the window. He used to have a chair that he sat in right by a big, huge picture window, like the one I was looking out of. And he would sit in his chair and read. He was a professor, and he was a very kind, sweet, gentle man. And he had a deep, deep sadness in him. And he would look out that window, and I would see him looking out the window, just gazing into space. And I know he was contemplating, and he wrote a lot, and he was filled with grief. That's my story about him now, that he had a tremendous amount of grief that he was carrying from his family and his ancestors and a lot of early deaths and great sadness. And then he himself died early. So that experience was carried on forward. And I had grief just thinking about my father and the carrying of the grief. And I could turn that around and say, I'm carrying this grief. I am carrying grief. If I allowed that to be here, just notice a huge welling in my heart of grief and heartbreak and sadness and a sense of missing my father. And then even right on the heels of that, a sense of him being there, right there in that moment with me right now, because I'm thinking of him. He's not gone. He's not lost. It's like a turnaround, coming alive right in that moment. And then know the whip is gone. And I decided to just go on a quiet walk. That's what the action was that happened. There was a walk that needed to happen in the beautiful sunny late afternoon instead of more computer time and more finishing, meeting this goal. Wonderful. I mean, I love the ultimate question, who would I be without my story? If this is my last week to live, I know that there's a lot of framework around meeting our goals and getting our things done and doing it right and taking advantage of this day as, the most efficient possible that you could ever possibly take advantage of and getting things done. And those are wonderful, just like all the diet books. Some may offer some incredible intelligence that is just right for you. Good to have this knowledge. And It is okay to do nothing. It is actually very meaningful to relax and settle in and feel what's from the past that we seem to carry forward because we have memory. We're amazing memory machines. And just to notice that and hold it and be with it in this present moment. So you can do that with the moment of craving. Craving. In a way you could say that story that I just shared with you that happened to me this very past week, that's a moment of craving. I want something done. It has to be done in order for me to be happy. This task, this creative, is writing curriculum for the eating peace process, getting it refined and more perfect. I want it done. That's necessary for happiness. Is that true? So this is my last week to live. I have done my work as best I can. There are things that are unfinished. Wonderful. So curiosity. Do not underestimate the power of curiosity and wondering and mystery and waiting. So I haven't shared in a while a simple exercise and a thing you can actually do. It'll seem ridiculously simple. Called wait 60 seconds. Literally count to 60. You have a craving, you think, I have to do something. You're running around, you have that running feeling inside or that dissatisfied or incredibly bored feeling inside. I need a little something. Just take a deep breath and count to 60 and open yourself up to curiosity. I wonder what's happening here. And just see what happens. If you need to, and I have definitely needed to a lot in my lifetime, write, because it gives your body some activity. It gives your mind some release. It will want to move past that sometimes very fast. I mean, it's just such a habit to avoid the feeling of memory of my father and feeling grief. Such a habit to avoid that. And instead, and wishing he was here and feeling like, this, just the memory, just the openness and awareness of it, like how much I'd love to share with him, and that I can share it with him right here now in writing and with this inquiry and with the process. So it'll just want to skip through that so fast. You've got your own things that you want to skip over, skip through, and get to the distraction mode. So much more satisfying though, and perhaps hard. So just aware that it's hard. It is not easy, because you have to kind of look and you might have to feel strongly. And a lot of us have been told our feelings are not so good. They're destroying us. Too emotional. All right. More on that another day. Let me know how it goes. Lots of love, everybody.